Hey, hey. Okay. I'm so excited about today. This is like one of my favorite things to talk about with my clients, with my friends, with anyone who's just like really interested in the virtual assistant world or building an agency. And that is how to land your first clients to go from, just a dream and an idea and just being like open for business to booked and busy. So I'm going to walk you through how to use the framework that I've created to actually go from like having nothing but an idea and a dream to having actual clients. So you don't need a fancy portfolio or a whole bunch of experience with running a business to like make this framework work for you. All you need is a little access, confidence, and a whole lot of strategy. So we'll talk through this and give you like a high level overview of how to do this. If you want to go more in depth, of course, as always, I'm open for one-on-one coaching. Or if you're like, I just need it to be real quick, we can do VA in a day. That is my VIP day, where I actually walk you through in one day together how to take your idea of a virtual assistant business and walk away with a business that's ready to say we're open and ready and available for clients at the end of that day together. Okay. So let's get into it and talk about how you actually go from open for business to booked and busy. Get out your notebooks. Let's hit it. Okay. So first, how are you going to find these clients? I think back to when I started my virtual assistant business, and I think about like the first time I tried to do this without a coach. And I was just like looking everywhere. And I was like, where do I find them? I was just posting on Instagram, like mimicking people who I saw running businesses and saying like the same things they were saying, but it didn't give me any clients. It wasn't converting. It was just like me talking on IG, and people would be like, oh, cool. What do you do? But before we jump in, if Instagram is where you want to find most of your clients, remember, people need to see you talk about what you do about 20 to 40 times before it's like locked in for them. And that's each person individually. So you need to make sure you're always constantly reiterating in your content what you do, how you serve people at any moment in time so that you can actually convert them into paying clients and not just people who are just watching you on the internet. Just a little tip. All right, so this is the first step to like actually find your clients. We're going to talk about when I had my first client. So my very first like virtual assistant client came from my business coach. My business coach had this cool thing called a matchmaking program, which I'm launching soon. One for myself. I kind of felt weird about it. I was like, oh, am I just copying everybody else? But then like I just keep helping my clients, my virtual assistant clients, get clients through my relationships, through people who know, like, oh, Fran, you were an excellent virtual assistant. Do you know anyone who could do this for me? You're an excellent podcast manager. Do you know anyone who's still offering those services? So I was like, okay, I've gotten this question from people looking for virtual assistants enough. I should just make my own. But anyway, so I'll have a matchmaking program coming out soon. I just have to put together a questionnaire to make sure I match people appropriately and that you don't just have a VA because this is the VA I have available. I want you to have the right one. But anywho, so my very first client came from my coach's matchmaking program. And I want to say maybe my first like two or three clients came from there. And the only reason I was able to get these clients was because I gained access through her because those people had already trusted her. They were like, okay, Sarah, we need a virtual assistant to do X. And she was like, oh, cool. I got a girlfriend. And I wasn't the only person she was like referring to them. Sometimes it would be like me and a couple other people that Sarah coached who were all vying for the same one client. And it just so happened that I would land some here and there. And I will say the ones that I got through Sarah, my clients that I got through Sarah, I had them until the day my business doors closed. When I converted to doing podcasts, they said, we're coming too. When I decided to have an agency, they said, build it up, girl. We'll be here. So they were pretty stable clients and they were well vetted. And I was so thankful to have access to them. I don't know that my business would have went as well if I didn't get to have like a cute little meet cute from my coach to my clients and really like change the game for my business altogether. Like those first three clients were the reason I was able to just like quit my 9 to 5 because they were steady income. They needed me for lots of hours and they always paid their invoices on time. But they trusted her, and by extension, they trusted me. That layer of social proof helps seal the deal. And that's the first key to getting clients. Like my biggest tip for you is if you can go through someone else. Referral based business works so much better than organic reach on Instagram. It works better than like applying on places like Fiverr and Upwork. It is going to be your number one way of actually getting your first client. All right. What to do if you do not have a coach? So you're probably saying, Fran, I don't have anyone to give me access to clients like that, but you probably do have someone in your network. So we're going to reach out to your personal network, not just to ask them to be your client because that's weird, that's cringe. I got the ick thinking about you reaching out to your friends and family saying, do you need a virtual assistant? I can do it. No, what I want you to do is let them know exactly what you do in like very plain language. You are going to email everyone in your personal network. This email is going to be friendly. It is not going to be salesy. It is just you announcing the doors of the church have opened to my business. So here's an example email. You can steal it. I usually use this like same template for my clients. I just spruce it up for them based on their business. So please use this exact wording if you need to, but I would say add some of your character in there. Make sure people know this is not just a message from ChatGPT. Put your own flair in there and use this basic outline. So in the email, you're going to say, hey, name, I just launched my virtual assistant business, exclamation mark. I offer X, Y, and Z services and would love if you would keep me in mind or pass my info along to anyone you might know who needs support. I appreciate you so much and thank you for cheering me on from the sidelines. Cool, simple, not salesies. It's just saying, hey, friends, family, I did a thing. I would love your support if you could just like, cheer me on. But if you're ever in a conversation and someone says like, man, my business is doing X, Y, and Z, I'm having a hard time managing my emails, managing my social media, managing my podcast, X, Y, and Z, whatever it is. They can say like, oh my God, my sister just started her business and she's offering this service. Or, oh my goodness, my best friend, she just started a virtual assistant business. Isn't this like so kismet? So like you're creating the energy they need when they're in that other conversation to just yap about you without you being around. So reach out to them, not for them to be your clients. Again, this is not cringy. This is just how we make sure people understand how to leverage what you do in business. Because let me tell you something, your family and friends want you to win. They want your business to thrive. They want to see you happy. So they think this is an honor. They're just like, oh my God, I can be a part of your business. I'll tell you a quick side note. When I started this podcast, my friends have no desire to be virtual assistants. They have no desire to run agencies. But let me tell you who's my number one listeners? My friends. Because they're like, this is the freest way for me to help Fran out. So I'm going to listen to her podcast. And while they're listening to my podcast, they're like, oh my goodness, by the way, I have a friend who I think could actually use your services the more I listen to the podcast. So it is not a burden to have your friends come along on your journey with your business. It is if you're trying to like force them to work with you and for you, et cetera, et cetera. But just to have them participate in like free ways and letting them know like exactly what you do so that they can be like the poster children out in the world for your business, do it. All right. So step number 1 to finding your clients, gain access through your current network. All right. Number 2, you are going to have to set up a discovery call. Let me tell you what a discovery call is if you've never done one. So basically a discovery call is just a sales call. It is, I call mine clarity calls, but it is a moment for you to meet with a client and just go over like what working together looks like. So for me, on my discovery calls when I was doing virtual assistant work, I would spend a lot of time making sure I would highlight the ways the client was doing so well in their business, but I didn't fake my experience. I just would make sure I showed them where I shine. I showed them like what my biggest skills were. One of my biggest skills still now is adaptability. Like if something goes left, I'm still calm. I'm like, okay, we can get this back on course. Not a big deal. We just might have to look into a few things. But I didn't fake my experience. I didn't lie and say like, oh yeah, I've done this 1,000 times in Dubsado. No, I would say like, yeah, I've learned about Dubsado since becoming a virtual assistant. I feel proficient enough to help you out. And I know that their resource hub and their support team are fantastic. So if we need some help, I know who to go to. So I wasn't lying, but I was also like showing them like I'm a pretty handy, skilled person. So here's what we want to do for the discovery call. Number one, like I just said, highlight the places that you shine. Don't fake your experience. Don't make anything up. We don't need like lies from a resume. Just tell them exactly what you do, how long you've been doing it, and where you actually shine. And then the second thing is you want to make sure you come to the call prepared, know who they are, what they do, and how you might support them. This first part of the discovery call, you have to show your booty off. Okay? All right. And then next, pro tip, make it personal and warm. Do not go in as a robot and say, like, reading off a script and saying, today, we're going to go over the services that I offer in my business. The first service that I offer is no, we're not a robot. We get on the call like we show up on Instagram. I would get on the call and say, like, hey, oh my goodness, I just saw your dog walk past. How long have you had that with your dog? And then we talk about that dog for a second. Or I might say, like, I just got off of Instagram and saw your cute little reel and maybe like started that moment. But just mention a point of connection. Or you could be like, oh my God, do you know Cam? I've known her for 32 years. That's my sister. I would like say that to anyone who's like following her sometimes just to break the ice so they know like, oh, Fran's a real person outside of Cam. And we don't have like an awkward moment where we don't understand how we connect or how we could talk to each other. And that'll instantly break the ice and set the tone for a relaxed relationship based first conversation versus like a sales conversation. And then during the discovery call, you want to listen more than you talk. This is a tip that I got from sales teams from tech companies. I don't take too much from sales teams from tech companies. I don't take too much of that like to heart or within my business, but they were onto something with that. So I remember I was listening to like a sales team member go through training and they were like, you want to make sure on your sales calls that the client is talking 80% of the time and you're talking 20% of the time. I was like, why do they want that? How will the client ever know they actually need the service? But the point of the discovery call is to gain as much information as you can about this client to learn what services you have to offer that will really change the game for them. So if they're yapping on and on about their business, it's easier for me to start to connect the dots. It's easier for me to say like, okay, I can see this working for them while they're still talking and I'm taking notes and saying, okay, so it sounds like they can't even schedule and post their podcast because they have so much going on. They don't even know like how they're going to come up with show notes next week for their podcast. They don't have a blog up for their podcast. Like this, I'm just taking these mental notes as someone's yapping at me on a discovery call so I know exactly how I can serve them. This is not the time to word vomit your whole resume. Please don't do that. And please don't do this. When you are a business owner, it is not the same as a job interview. This is you going business to business and you're saying like, okay, let's see how our businesses would actually map well together. It's not a point for you to prove that you were a straight A student. You got a 4.0 in college. You did all these things. And I also worked here and I worked there. Not the time for this. Not the time. Right now is the time to take notes, ask thoughtful questions, and show that you care about them. And it's not just about the sale, it's about making sure you actually are the best fit for one another. Okay? So that was the discovery call. And then after the discovery call is over, you hang up and you guys like walk away from one another. You like feel good. Make sure after each discovery call, just a quick tip, you like sit with yourself and think through like what you did good, what you could do improve on, and what you feel like you no longer want to do when you're on discovery calls. Sometimes that happens to me still. Like I'll get off of a discovery call and say like, I never want to do that again. Like if I said something weird, I know one time I remember being on a discovery call and I told somebody like, "Oh yeah, I love cats. I hate cats. I'm afraid of cats. I think they're cute on the internet and that is it." So after that discovery call, I was like, I never want to lie about who I am anymore. If they bring up cats, I'll be like, whew, one of my biggest fear, but I love seeing them on the internet. That's my new sentence and statement. So when you're on discovery calls, make sure right after you do like a quick download with yourself, take out a notebook and say like, these things I really killed here. These things were kind of wonky, but I see where I was going. This I never want to do again. I never want to speak about cats again. Okay. All right. So after the discovery call, we're going to follow up like a professional. And I don't mean professional as in like corporate boss girly. I mean professional as in like I really do run a business. So we're going to send a personalized follow up video. I know some of you are like, video friend. I am not you. I am not doing a podcast video. I'm not posting on YouTube. This is not for anyone to see except for that client. And if you just got off a discovery call, I would do it probably right then and there so you don't have to like redo your makeup or like put on clothes again if you're already relaxed. What you want to do in this video, you want to recap what you talked about, remind them of how you can help them, and let your personality shine here. This is the moment where it is about you because you're the only person in the room on that video. You are going to show up and show out on this video. You're going to impress the pants off of them. If you said anything weird that you want to clarify from the discovery call, now is your time to like de-weird it and really like kind of put a pretty bow on top of it. And add like a little line like, just to keep me on my toes, I've got a reminder set to follow up with you in 3 days. If I don't hear from you, just an FYI. This right here is to disarm them when they see your name again in their inbox, because follow up is the name of the game. You make money in the follow-ups. Every person who's ever become one of my clients is not because they did it on the discovery call. Usually my discovery calls and like that was a pleasant conversation. And it's like if I would leave it there, they probably wouldn't convert into a client because I mostly want to disarm you the entire process. I don't want you to fall into like a weird sales cycle loop, and I don't want to feel salesy myself. So after the discovery call, I send this video and I make sure they know, FYI, I will follow up again, but this is just like me making sure I check in with you, no pressure, right? And this is just to show them we already have the skills of organization. We're already thoughtful, and we're also very respectful by letting you know the time frame of when you'll see my name again in your inbox, and there's no pressure as soon as you see it once more. So if you're just kind of like, Fran, I don't want to follow up, like they got off the discovery call, they didn't say yes on the discovery call. If you do not follow up, you may never get a client, because most people, when it comes to like business to business, business to business working together and like having a contract, there's going to take some effort outside of that sales call. Getting them to the sales call is a like big deal. It's worth celebrating. But getting them to the finish line of signing a contract is going to take some follow up. I suggest that you follow up at least 3 times. And if for whatever reason you get no response, that does not mean no. So after the third time, we're just going to follow up gently on the third time. The first one is going to be your video, and that's going to be at least 24 hours, within 24 hours after your discovery call. The second one is just going to be like a, hey, I hope everything's going well, and just a quick, like, just reminding you of what we talked about the other day. And then also maybe putting something personal in there to say, like, I was on Instagram, saw you do X, Y, and Z. And I was just like, yeah, we just talked about in our discovery call about how she wants to do that. So whatever like connection you made in the discovery call at that point needs to go and follow up 2. Follow up 3 is just really gentle, saying, like, hey, I want to be respectful of your time and make sure I'm not bombarding you, but I just want to let you know I'm going to kind of step back and pull back on like emailing you a lot, but the door is still open. I may reach out from time to time just to keep you in the loop, but feel no pressure at any time. So the gentle follow-ups is going to be like so huge, but you want to follow up gently. And if nothing, mark them as unresponsive. If they're never responding anytime you follow up with them, just mark them as unresponsive in your lead generation tracker. And then add them to a staying warm email list that you reach out to like monthly or quarterly. And this list could just be like you sending like tips and tricks. Like if you are a podcast manager, what I used to do is any of my like warm leads, people who I've gotten on a discovery call with before, but like didn't respond and say yes to working together, I would send them like this quarterly newsletter that would just talk about things that are shifting and changing in the podcast industry, what I've been doing with my clients to make sure they stay ahead, what you can do, or then just sometimes like newer equipment that might be helpful for them in their podcast, things of that nature. And I would like, people would convert to an actual client from that staying warm email list because they were like, okay, she really is like an expert. She really knows what she's talking about, right? And it takes some people some time to make these decisions. So follow up. All right. And then finally, step 4, they said yes. Now what? All right, it's time to celebrate and get to work. So the first client is a big deal. You have to celebrate so big. Like, and I mean, it doesn't have to mean like you go on a trip, because let's not get crazy. We're not making like $1 million from one client. And if you are, I need to be coached by you. But we want to go out and celebrate like this feeling of like actually feeling like your business is for real, for real, for real now. Once you get that first client, you're like, oh, I just got to check. I am ready. I have made it. She has arrived. So it's a big deal. You want to treat yourself and then go get organized and get ready for your client. Here's what you need to send them right away. If you're like nervous and worried, you're like, they said yes. What do I do? Like, you've done all this work, getting all these leads, and you've been practicing discovery calls, and then surprise, you got a yes. Here's what you want to send them right afterwards. You want to send them a contract and an invoice. Always bill ahead of the month. So if they signed up and they said they want to do 20 hours a month, you're going to bill them on the first of every month for the work that is happening within that month. So today for me is April 1st. It's the first of the month. Get up, get up. But today is April 1st. And I would bill my clients for all the work that I will be doing in April. And we do this so like we make sure we get paid for the work we do as virtual assistants instead of waiting on the back end at the end of the month. You've done all this work and somebody walks away and does not pay their invoice. That is the worst thing ever. So to avoid that, you want to go ahead and invoice them up front. So send them a contract and invoice, just, contract CYA yourself. There are plenty of people on Instagram, if you like just type in the search engine, lawyers who have contracts that you can purchase. My clients actually get a contract from me that I already purchased from a lawyer that works for all VAs in general. But you can look for people like Coaches and Company. They have contracts. there's another one. I can't think of her name right now, but I'll put some in the show notes if you're looking for a contract for yourself to purchase. They run about like 150 to like $500 per contract. So just take a look at those and you can purchase them. Make sure you're CYA, baby. And then after you send the contract and invoice, the second thing is you want to send a client questionnaire to gather details and expectations. So you want to know exactly what the client needs support around to make sure you create a pretty in-depth questionnaire, or some people might refer to this as like the intake phase if you're trying to Google it. Create a questionnaire to send to them. Then 3, you need a time tracker and a task tracker. So you need to pick a system like a ClickUp, Asana, Notion, Toggle, whatever works for you to make sure you're managing tasks well for them and also tracking the time it takes to manage them. And then finally, number 4, you want to send them a schedule to do a kickoff call. This will set the tone and make the client feel supported. Your kickoff call could just be like a quick 30-minute chat to make sure you both know what you expect from one another, to find clarity on like anything in the questionnaire the client may have sent over that you're just confused about. I would make this between 30 minutes to an hour. The more you have clients, the easier this actually gets. I think I settled on like 45 minutes for our kickoff call for all of my podcast management clients, because for the most part, I was like, it's usually about the same thing with the podcast, especially when you're running an agency and you're just doing the same thing over and over again. There's less to learn up front other than like understanding how their show flowed, understanding where they record and what platform they were scheduling their podcast on, et cetera, et cetera. There were some like things that were like individualized. Is that a word? I don't know. For each per client. But for the most part, I could wrap it up in about 30 to 45 minutes for a kickoff call. And yeah, now you got a client, you're supporting them, you're rolling. I would say for the first couple of weeks with your client, do a check-in call, like maybe a 15-minute call at the start of every week to make sure you're like intention setting and going throughout the week well together. And then after that, maybe just do like a monthly call or a quarterly call to talk through like tasks, expectations, and things of that nature. Let's put a bow on it as usual. Landing your first client doesn't require perfection at all. It just requires clarity, confidence, and connection. So keep that in mind if you're just kind of like overwhelmed by the thought of starting a virtual assistant business. You got everything you need in your bag right now, babe. Like, you can do this. Whether you're using your network for or referrals, just putting yourself out there, this framework works every single time to change that person into a maybe to a yes. And if you need help, I got you. You can book a VIP day and we can do VA in a day, where we're going to set everything up that you need to get going from A to Z in one day together. All you would have to do the next day is make sure you have finished any homework I gave you, and you could start opening for business that very day and looking for leads. Or if you're like, I want to take this slow, I want this to like build up into an agency business, I don't want to just be a virtual assistant forever. We're going to talk about this more next week, but you can grab a one-on-one spot with me. So we go through things like this step by step. We set it up individualized for you. And again, is that a word? Somebody let me know. But we go step by step together and build out the process that would work to make you a business that you love and enjoy. VA in a day. Now that we are in April, the price has gone back up. It is now $897 for a VIP day with me for VA in a day. And then for one-on-one coaching, it is just $997 every month for a 6-month period to really see like active change in how your business is growing. All right. And don't forget, share this with your friends. If you hear a friend say like, I think I should be a virtual assistant, you should say, oh my God, this girl I know, Fran, she has a podcast. She can help you. All right. I'll see y'all next week. Bye.